to our today's revision lesson. So today we are looking at KCSE 2023 revision and prediction, paper 1. In every KCSE exam, in form 4 we are tested on the topic we call calculus, which involve differentiation, integration, and area approximation. So in our today's lesson, we look at the question that is normally tested in paper 1, which is a differentiation. It is normally in question number 24. So in every KCSE exam, that is paper 1, you'll always find that question tested. And it is an application question. And it applies the knowledge on knowing how to differentiate given a certain function. So in our lesson today, we have the question, the application question on displacement. On differentiation, we have the displacement of the particle s meters, t seconds after passing a fixed point O is given by the equation below there. Then we have to calculate the displacement of the particle 2 seconds later. So in maths, displacement is given using the letter S. So S represents the displacement. And in this case, we are being asked about the displacement of the particle when t is equals to 2 seconds. So what you are supposed to do, you are supposed to substitute the t into the given equation such that we have S is equals to the equation 3 plus 2. Wherever we have the letter t, we substitute with the 2 seconds. So into 2, and then minus 5, then 2 squared. The t, the displacement of the particle when t is equals to 2 seconds. And then computing that, we get this is 3 plus 2 by 2 is 4. Then 2 squared is 4. So 4 by 5, we get this is minus 20. And then we have these as 3 plus 4. Of course, that is 7 minus 20. So we get our answer as negative 13. But since we are talking about displacement, we are going to drop the sign negative and talk of 13 meters. 13 meters. So the displacement of the particle when t is equals to 2 seconds will be 13 meters. So we are taking the equation given for S and substituting the value of t being 2 and substituting the value of t being 2, and then we work our way down that way. So by doing so, you are supposed to earn 2 marks. So we are saying we are looking at revision of paper 1 for KCSE 2023. This is an area that you cannot miss in any exam in paper 1, that is differentiation, application of differentiation. So part B of the same question, so these are question worth 10 marks. So part B of the same, I have the time taken for the particle to return to the origin. So the time it takes for the particle to come to the same position, it means the displacement at that point will be 0. So a particle covers a displacement maybe 10 meters or 13 meters, like in that case, and then back to 13 meters. So the displacement covered, were it for distance, if you are talking about distance, then we'll talk about 26 meters. But for displacement, that is 0. If you move from one point A to B and then you move from point B to A again, we say in March you've covered 0 displacement, or you'll not covered any distance. So we're going to therefore equate the equation for displacement to 0. So 3 plus 2t minus 5t squared is equals to 0. And now what we form here is a quadratic equation which can be solved quadratically using, for example, quadratic formula. So t is equals to minus b. So this is our b, this is our a, this is our c. So minus b, so minus 2 plus or minus the square root of b squared. So 2 squared is 4 minus 4ac, 4 by a is negative 5 and c is 3, divide by 2a. Our a is negative 5. So we'll get that t is equals to negative 2 plus or minus. So multiplying 4 by 5 minus 4 by 5 is 20 by 3 is 60. So we'll have 40 plus 60. And then those are under root, divide by now negative 10, and then from there we have negative 2 plus or minus 40 plus 60 is 100, so the square root of 100 divided by negative 10. The square root of 100 is 10, or no, this was not 40 but 4, so we are talking of 64, sorry. So the square root of 64 is 8, so minus 2 plus or minus 8 over negative 10. So we take the value of x being at one point being negative and at the other point being positive. So because we are looking for time can never be negative. So we are going to consider when we have negative 2 plus 8 or negative 2 minus 8, which is negative 10 divided by negative 10. So t is equals to 1 second. So we only consider when t is negative, because time can never be negative. So that is the time taken for the particle to return to rest. So we've taken the equation for the displacement, we've equated it to 0, and then we've come up with a quadratic equation which we've solved using a quadratic formula to obtain the value of t and the particle return back to its original position. So the next question is the maximum displacement of the particle. We normally say at maximum displacement the velocity is 0. So if you throw a stone upwards, the point it moves highest, then that body stop moving, and we say at that instant v is equals to 0, or the velocity is equals to 0. So given the equation for displacement s, we want velocity to acceleration down this way, we say we differentiate. If we are moving back, we talk of integrating. So in this case, we have an equation for displacement, so we are going to talk about ds over dt, which is equals to v. So we integrate the equation of displacement, which is 3 plus 2t minus 5t squared is equals to 0. So we differentiate this equation by getting ds dt, and we will have on differentiating we should get these ends. So 2 minus 2 by 5 minus 10t That is the equation for displacement, or that's the equation for velocity upon differentiating in the right way. So in any case we talk about the coefficient of x is multiplied by the coefficient of t here. In this case we are talking about t. So this stands to be the equation for the velocity, and the question is the maximum displacement of the particle. And at maximum velocity or at maximum displacement, velocity is equals to 0. So we are going to therefore say 2 minus 10t, the equation for velocity, is equals to 0. And we can therefore say 2 is equals to 10t, dividing by 10 and by 10, we get that t is equals to 1 over 5, because we will obtain that the time taken to reach maximum height is 1 over 5 seconds. But the question is the maximum displacement of the particle. So we're going to take the equation for displacement and equate the value of t being 1 over 5. So into 1 over 5, so the original equation of displacement, yes, and then we equate the value of t. So hapa ni 5, 1 over 5 squared, 1 over 5 squared, and then computing this we get 3 plus 2 over 5 minus, so 1 over 5 squared is 1 over 25, so cancelling out that we still obtain 1 over 5, and then therefore the distance will be 3, actually 2 over 5 minus 1 over 5, we get 1 over 5, so t will be, or the displacement will be 1 or 3 1 over 5 meters, 3 1 over 5 meters. And finally the initial velocity of the particle, the initial velocity of the particle. So initial velocity of the particle means t at that point is equals to 0, and therefore the equation for velocity being given by v is equals to 2 minus 10t. So when we talk about the initial velocity of the particle, we'll substitute the value of t being 0. So v will be 2 minus 10 into 0, and then v is equals to 2 meters per second. So that will be the value of the velocity. So thank you for joining my class. That was KCSE 2023 prediction paper 1, a part on differentiation, quiz tested in paper 1, worth 10 marks. So we continue doing this in our next session. I was live on Facebook, TikTok, and my YouTube channel. For more of this, search my YouTube channel and you'll learn more. Thank you, and share. Have a good evening.